Everything comes with some amount of risk factor, but when you're a gigantic billion-dollar company, then those risks can be great. Xbox have been around for over 20 years now, and in that time they've seen it all. Massive success with their own property, innovative moves that have changed the industry forever, and things that have blown up in their face. I'm Si for WhatCulture.com, and these are the 8 biggest Xbox risks that totally backfired. Number 8. Xbox One's DRM. Putting it lightly, the Xbox One's launch was kind of a disaster, and we'll certainly get into that more across this list. For now though, let's start with one of the kickers. Before the console was ever even revealed, links began to spring from the internet that Xbox's new console was going to be always online. The world of today still isn't ready for such a concept, so in 2013 there were immediate concerns. Furthermore, Xbox's team did very little to explain how it would work or why it was necessary, prompting many gamers to understandably call it corporate greed. In the following months, it was confirmed that the Xbox One would connect to the internet every 24 hours to basically make sure you were the one true owner of a game. Not only did you have to be always connected, newly bought games would be associated with a specific Xbox Live account. If anyone else in your home wanted to play it on their profile, they would have to pay a fee for the privilege. This meant that rental and resale were not quite out of the question, but an absolutely unattractive proposition. At E3 that year, PlayStation snuck in a series of knockout punches by saying that the PS4 would not impose any of these restrictions, to one of the happiest crowd responses in E3 history, simply for doing what Microsoft wasn't. Adam Orff, creative director of Microsoft Studios, told gamers to deal with it in a tweet, and Don Matrick, with all the sass of a high school mean girl, remarked to the media, "We have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called the Xbox 360. Both men were very quickly out of the door when Microsoft's higher-ups conceded. 10 days on from E3, a statement explained that they were walking back all of these ideas in what is generally called the Xbox 180. The damage, however, had been done. Number 7. Buying Rare. Donkey Kong Country, Banjo-Kazooie, 007 GoldenEye, Conker's Bad Fur Day, the list of games developed by Rare for Nintendo systems is long and illustrious. It solidified the team at the turn of the millennia as one of the most trustworthy and talented studios around. And then in 2002, Microsoft won the bidding war and acquired them, and there was a general unsettled hush across the land. This didn't automatically mean that Rare was incapable of producing good games, but Microsoft would have to support them properly, as the problems were plain to see. For every moody shooter like Perfect Dark, Rare would produce 3 incredible titles with warm and cutesy visuals. Conversely, people flocked to the Xbox for Halo, Gears of War and Call of Duty, not Banjo-Kazooie and Diddy Kong Racing. Rare's workforce saw the mismatch too. Around the acquisition, many of the studio's prominent developers left the company for pastures new. What this meant was that Rare was releasing new properties to an untested audience without the guidance of its key staff. Xbox had spent $375 million on a studio that was losing its brightest stars. Even the brilliant Viva Pinata games failed to sell, and it prompted Rare's founders to abandon ship, claiming that Microsoft didn't market them correctly. Thus began an era of Rare being assigned to work on lowly Kinect games, awful stuff that was truly beneath them, as the gaming industry shook its collective head as if to say, look at how they massacred my boy. Once the most respected developers in the world, now reduced to a cog in the machine. You may rightfully argue that Rare's Sea of Thieves has been a hit, but one successful new IP since 2002 pretty much tells you everything you need to know. Number 6. The Kinect. The Wii drew in a massive audience of people who would otherwise never consider themselves gamers. As such, it was easy to predict that both Sony and Microsoft would take their own chances to put pies out on the windowsill in hope to attract some of these people dipping their toes into electronic entertainment. And in concept and in most demonstrations, the Xbox Kinect was an exciting and futuristic bit of kit. Heavy marketing for the peripheral billed you as the controller and positioned it as this Star Trek level technology that you could control with your voice. It doesn't matter that the games for it were horrible, the Kinect did numbers. What's the Xbox 360's biggest selling game of all time? It's not Halo and it's not GTA 5, it's Kinect Adventures. The problem was that the bubble of mainstream interest would burst eventually, and that it did, leaving no one but the core gaming audience brilliance behind. Already feeling sidelined, they were ignored yet again. After its first taste, Xbox was intent on pushing for a larger share of the average living room, and this meant packaging a new Kinect with the Xbox One for the hefty asking price of $499. This higher price point was bad enough to drive gamers further away, most of whom didn't want the Kinect to begin with. However, talk that the peripheral needed to stay plugged in raised concerns that the tiny electronic box was listening at all times. The Kinect went from feeling like a dumb gimmick to something genuinely unsettling. It may have the Guinness World Record for fastest selling consumer electronics device, but the legacy of the Kinect is gamers who felt cast aside for the mainstream and privacy concerns. Number 5. HD DVD support. One of the stroke of geniuses of the PlayStation 2 and an unsung reason for its wider success was the inclusion of a DVD player. Sony then followed the DVD with their own format, a little thing you may have heard of called Blu-ray. Most importantly, Blu-ray players in 2006 were going for well over $1,000, and so the PS3 including one as standard made it an attractive machine. To combat this, Microsoft picked a competing format called HD DVD. Suddenly, the fight for high-def video was centered around video game consoles. The Xbox 360 didn't come equipped with an HD DVD player, but an optional disc drive accessory was produced. Problem was, many gamers opted for the 360 based on its competitive price as opposed to the PS3. Also, they didn't want to shell out another $200, especially considering that most TVs at the time weren't good enough to show high definition in its full power. The miniature war between the two formats was quite a short one, with certain movie studios aligning on one side or the other. However, with Walmart, Blockbuster, and the nascent Netflix choosing to exclusively stock Blu-ray, then HD DVD was not long for this world. Thankfully, this is one unfortunate choice that didn't do lasting damage to the Xbox brand, but it was just a case of backing the wrong horse. Number 4. Buying Activision Blizzard. Did you hear that Microsoft is buying Activision Blizzard? You probably did. It's been kind of a big story. What Microsoft probably hoped would be an open and shut case wound up becoming the headline that wouldn't go away, because of the nature of such a huge purchase that sees Xbox jump to the biggest game company in the US. There was intervention by governing bodies like the Competition and Markets Authority. The buyout was stalled. And as the months rolled on, it meant more and more time for folks to examine it from every angle. There was discussion about how the whole thing was a perfect way for Activision Blizzard to push its workplace harassment allegations out of the headlines, and there was talk that it was harmful to the entertainment industry as a whole. The whole thing was a platform for Xbox, PlayStation, whoever really, just to act as childishly as possible. When the UK government blocked the deal alongside the CMA, Microsoft's Vice Chair Brad Smith called the move bad for Britain. Obviously, the games industry is a business, and it's all about that bottom line, but putting this deal under the microscope has really illuminated the issues with both Microsoft and Sony striking exclusive deals with independent studios. Exclusivity can be important, but so too is a healthy industry that feeds on competition over creating a monopoly. More than this, it was just a lot of press that Microsoft probably could have done without. The PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X have both had a rather rough couple of years since launch due to a lack of hardware availability and underwhelming releases. However, Microsoft gobbling up Call of Duty for Game Pass like a cosmic horror business mogul has become the unshakable image for the brand in the last year. Number 3. The Red Ring of Death. The 7th generation of consoles was always going to be huge. Microsoft had hit a hell of an opening salvo with the Xbox and its online services and a stack of solid games. However, their competition was PlayStation, who was standing tall in the ring looking to follow up the best-selling console of all time. Microsoft knew that its best chance was to get a head start on the PlayStation 3, and so the Xbox 360 launched a full year in advance, entering the marketplace as the most powerful and most desirable machine out there. However, this wound up being the monkey paw for the system. If you were a long-time Xbox 360 owner, it was almost a sure thing that you experienced the Red Ring of Death at least once. Faulty connectors caused the system to brick, flashing 3 red lights as its death knell. The memes and videos of Xboxes being destroyed in anguish were a way to express shared grief. Xbox 360s were all ticking time bombs. Microsoft were forced to halt production of the console to investigate, identify, and correct the issue to mitigate fallout. In the Power On Xbox documentary series, it was estimated that the company lost over $1 billion in revenue over this little red curse. Much worse, it damaged the company's image when the news went mainstream, making such a fast-track release a regrettable decision in retrospect. Number 2, the Xbox One's launch. It's not unheard of that the biggest consoles of all time are followed by less than stellar younger siblings. After the Xbox 360 ruled the roost for years, Microsoft delivered one of the most unmitigated gaming disasters from top to bottom. The Xbox One's unveiling didn't feature a single video game until 27 minutes in, and instead focused on TV, and TV. The despair of watching this show was palpable as Don Matrick danced around on stage waffling about using your phone to buy cinema tickets whilst watching a trailer on screen and the ability to tune into live sports. The first thing we ever saw running on an Xbox One was The Price is Right. Something about that set up the rest of the One's lifespan, and worst of all, the TV services that ate up most of the conference didn't even launch alongside the console outside of the US. Microsoft's desire was for the Xbox to be more than just a game system, and in a sense they were moving in the right direction with voice command and streaming television. However, most gamers felt that their company focus was just all over the place and also untrustworthy. DRM, Connect, no backwards compatibility, and a lacking roster of exclusive titles kept people away. What was there for your core audience of gamers? Eventually, some of these things would get fixed, but even Phil Spencer admits that the Xbox One was part of the generation that Microsoft truly failed. And number 1, the lack of exclusives. Game Pass was the last-minute windfall that the Xbox One desperately needed, and so it's naturally been positioned front and center of the Xbox Series X. The killer app of the console was certainly a tempting prospect, a subscription service that lets you into a gigantic library of instant access games. Sounds like a dream come true. But here's the thing. Subscription TV services like Netflix are starting to find out that the model perhaps can't last forever. It doesn't matter how much content they have, numbers are dropping. The only thing that temporarily stems the flow is a new season of, say, Stranger Things that gets everybody's attention. Whilst Phil Spencer seems to think that Bethesda's Starfield won't drive people away from PS5, it is historically proven that exclusives win the race to the top. A certain black and green new kid on the block in 2001 wouldn't have made a splash without Halo, Project Gotham, Fable, Elder Scrolls, and so on. Game Pass has kept Xbox trucking along, but it's not been the revolution many expected. A gargantuan, tempting library of games that one might play repeatedly pales compared to must-play games that capture news cycles and social media like Final Fantasy XVI, Spider-Man 2, and Tears of the Kingdom. Xbox needs a needle mover, a true generation-defining exclusive, and it needs it now. Whilst Xbox buys studios to pad Game Pass out, it leaves beloved original franchises abandoned or in states of disarray. Its laser focus has produced a console of quantity over quality. It also devalues what could have been. Halo and Gears of War, once the Xbox biggest sellers, have become fodder for the Game Pass machine rather than major launch events. For gamers that can only afford a single console choice per generation, it's like being asked if you would like to eat a few full-priced but fulfilling perfectly curated steak meals, or just stick with the fast food approach of Game Pass's on-demand service. And the numbers of Xbox's sales for the last 5 years don't lie that something is missing. Now, I'm sure I've upset lots of people with this video, but don't worry, we have done the other side in a previous video, which you can check out now. Scott ran down the 8 biggest risks that totally backfired for PlayStation. Leave a comment down below which of these risks do you think Microsoft should have never taken, and of course, like this video, subscribe, head over to WhatCulture.com for more content every day. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.